We are here with Principal Planner Peter Menser to talk about Public Hearings 101, the basics about a public hearing. Kind of important. We sort of assume in our day-to-day life as we're working as township government employees that people know what public hearings are, but maybe there are a few people who don't.
Sure.
So basically, just sort of start off by describing what is a public hearing.
Okay, so a public hearing is, in most cases, a required process via state laws, especially in the planning world when we're considering development projects or rezonings or other kind of public development issues, whereby the planning staff or the municipality has to provide notice to everyone within usually 300 feet of a property that's being considered for something. And the public hearing is an opportunity for all neighbors, interested parties, the property owner, and everyone really involved or interested in the request to come to the township hall room and share their concerns, their views on the proposal.
Okay. And how does someone know if they want to come to the township and they have a development project, how do they know that there needs to be a public hearing? Do they work with the planning department on that?
There's a couple different ways. They either, if they live nearby, they may receive a letter from me saying, please come, here's what's being proposed, please come, share your opinions, hear more about the request.
Okay.
Because you can only convey so much in a letter about what's being proposed. So a lot of times it's an opportunity to hear more about it, review the application. But a lot of times, really the other way is through our township website. So we post the legal notice to the township website, and you have to kind of pay attention to the legal notice section of our website, and we post all the notices there. And it's also, for those of you that do notice, in the back of the newspaper, it's typically the Town Courier, will post, there's a section along with other municipalities and all kinds of other endeavors, a small notice in the back of the newspaper on Sundays that say, here are the public hearings that are coming up.
So is the state requirement to have it posted in 2 locations?
Yes,
Okay.
we have to publish it in a newspaper of general circulation. We choose the Town Courier, it's the local version of the newspaper. And then we also have to send it to, it depends on the type of project, but everyone within either 300 feet, typically 300 feet of whatever property is being considered.
Okay. Have you ever had to go outside of 300 feet for any reason, or had someone request? Okay.
Absolutely. It depends. Every case is a little bit different. We stick with, to have a good standard, we stick with the state noticing requirements. So it's typically 300 feet. Now our wetland use permit actually requires 500 feet. And there have been some instances where we know or we anticipate a lot more interest in a particular topic. Maybe it's something controversial,
Sure.
or it's somewhere geographically that just makes sense to notice maybe a larger part of a neighborhood, or for example with the medical marijuana overlay district. Now that's something that the board's considering right now, but we're going to go above and beyond the notification requirements and do everybody within not only the districts themselves but also outside of the districts.
Do you have people contact you and say, hey, I want to be on the notice list?
We do, and I do my best to include people. Typically, I'll include them via email.
Yeah.
But it's a tough situation to handle because we have a lot of people that may be interested in certain things and others. So I try to keep them in the loop as best as possible.
How many public hearings do you know, maybe offhand, come before the board?
The board,
year.
so the Planning Commission and the board. The Planning Commission is going to see the bulk of the public hearings. The board only has public hearings in specific instances. So mostly with our mixed-use plan unit development ordinance, it requires a public hearing both at the Planning Commission and at the board.
Okay.
So we're going to see the most at the Planning Commission. We usually see 1 or 2 per meeting, and so we meet 24. So we're going to see 50 a year.
Okay.
And the board's going to see less than, they're going to also see quite a bit, but they're going to see less. Now the board also has public hearings related to things like streetlight assessment districts. You'll see a lot of those where they're not often well attended because it's only typically the neighborhood that's involved, and usually up front, that's a lot of that information is shared up front, so they don't need to come out to the actual meeting. But the board will have quite a few public hearings throughout the year as well, but I would say the Planning Commission gets more.
So does it typically go to the Planning Commission first and then to the board if it needs to go to the board?
Yep, the typical process, depending on, again, the type of project. Well, the Planning Commission will send our notices out, the Planning Commission will have a public hearing, and then from there we'll progress on to the board. In the case of our MUPUD projects, the Planning Commission has their public hearing, we re-notice it, so we send those same notices out again, and then the board will have a separate public hearing,
Okay.
maybe a month later.
Okay. What public hearings do you have coming up?
We just had a Planning Commission this last Monday night, and we had a public hearing for a rezoning over near the Wardcliff neighborhood. And upcoming, for example, we've got a special use permit for a changing message sign at our McDonald's here in Grand River, coming up to the Planning Commission. We'll have public hearings over the next couple of months related to a couple more rezonings. It really could be anything. So we'll know at least 30 days ahead of time what's coming up, and we try to get the notices out as quickly as possible.
And do you ever have a public hearing, more than one public hearing on the same development project, or?
We could. So some cases will require, for example, the township has an ordinance that says any construction of a building or a group of buildings over 25,000 square feet automatically goes to the board. So there could be instances where a project would go to the Planning Commission for one public hearing. It would have a second public hearing at the board for a separate topic. So it goes only for the land use in one case, and then for size in another. So it could have a public hearing at both. And certainly our MUPUD ordinance requires one at each.
So when people attend a public hearing, are they limited to the 3 minutes? Is it 3 minutes each, or is there, because I know during the public comment portion there's a 3-minute limit. Is it the same for a public hearing?
It's typically the same. So,
because you want to hear everyone.
Yep, at any a typical meeting, so in the Planning Commission example, we'll have time at the beginning of the meeting for public comment. That's limited to 3 minutes. There are some exceptions, especially if you ask ahead of time. You may be granted a little bit more time. But in the interest of getting everybody heard and keeping the meeting within reasonably short, it's limited to 3 minutes. And I think most people are able to comply with that.
Okay.
Because that's quite a lot of time when you're standing up in front of everybody talking. So also, when there's a public hearing scheduled, in addition to that time at the beginning, during the public hearing itself, so when we get to that agenda item, there's another chance for public comments. We also hold those to approximately 3 minutes.
Okay.
Then at the end of the meeting, there's an additional time for public comments. So at any given meeting, you're going to get, as a resident and you're interested in a topic that the Planning Commission or the board is discussing, you're going to get 3 opportunities to share your concerns or thoughts about the project.
So you really can have up to 9 minutes.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us that's about public hearings? Or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're great opportunities, and really one of the only conduits for our elected and appointed officials to get feedback on these projects. The township can't exist in a vacuum. We need input from our residents. It's really crucial for the vetting process, whether it's a new policy the township's considering, or a land development, or even just the rezoning of a property. You can always, if you can't make it in person, you can show up, or you can send an email either to me, and I'll send it through the Planning Commission. You can send emails to the board. You can send written communications via the Postal Service. So there are lots of opportunities, but I'm a big proponent of, if you can make it, show up in person, be there to hear the discussions and participate when you can.
It's different, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot different. And you actually, especially if you're here at the meeting, you'll get an opportunity most likely to interact face-to-face with whoever the applicant is. Outside of the meeting, introduce yourself, hear more about what they're proposing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, talking about it and the whole process, and I hope that people have the opportunity to, connect with Meridian Township via the website or social media or the town courier to see when those public hearings take place.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you for watching.